I should start by explaining why I'm making this video. I have about 3 consistent viewers. Woo. I know. Really breaking expectations here. Anyway, one of those people noticed I consistently made jokes referencing voices, being certified crazy, talking about meds, etc., etc. And they expressed interest in wanting to hear me speak more about this topic and what it's like living with schizophrenia, which I am diagnosed with. Um, I never, I, like most people who know me know that I'm diagnosed with what it's called schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenia and a mood disorder. Currently, I am diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression, and it was a pretty long journey to get there, which I'll explain in a moment. I decided a long time ago that being on this spectrum, because it is a spectrum, a lot of people don't know that, wasn't going to stop me from talking about it. I'm a little bit more lucid than a lot of people I share this disorder with, my compatriots, if you will. And I feel that I sort of have a duty to speak out about things um, because of that. But anyway, it's being diagnosed with schizophrenia is like a death sentence to most people, and it definitely was to me at first. But then I realized like I'm just going to talk about it the way that I talk about everything, and if that bothers people, oh well. Um, it shouldn't be shunned or viewed as a danger or oddity, though I will say that people being scared of you simply because of your diagnosis and nothing else is both a pro and a con. A pro because people will leave you the fuck alone, and also a con because, well, people will leave you the fuck alone. I trust you understand exactly what that means. Basically, it took a while for me to get the schizophrenia diagnosis. The short answer here is that I'm a woman, so my mental problems were immediately attributed to bipolar and nothing else. My first diagnosis was bipolar 2. I accepted this initial diagnosis because why wouldn't I? Over the years, the meds I got just didn't work. In fact, many of them made me worse. I was on a constant like revolving door of meds, different combinations that just didn't work. And like some of them just made me crazier, made me angrier. Some of them made me completely docile where I felt like I couldn't do anything. Some of them sucked my creativity right out of me. It just never felt right. Nothing really worked. And so that's why I was constantly on and off of meds. I was deemed non compliant and treatment resistant multiple times, really. Um, Eventually, my disorders progressed and I became much less stable and capable of understanding certain things. My symptoms became much more severe. This upped my diagnosis to bipolar 1, then later bipolar 1 with psychotic features, and after a few years of meds still not working, hospital visits, tons of bad decisions, and self-hatred, I eventually received the diagnosis of schizophrenia and bipolar. Again, still accepting that I was bipolar. And yeah, they gave the diagnosis as schizophrenia and bipolar, which is basically schizoaffective disorder. Um, as you might guess, this began to come under question for me as it seemed like I didn't have manic phases that followed how they'd work with bipolar 1, which was the biggest clue to me that something was off. And I said this earlier, but like, I think they overdiagnose women with bipolar like a lot and BPD now that I think about it. Just because, it's that same idea that, oh, women are hysterical, we're crazy, oh, it's just anxiety, it's this, it's depression, it's nothing serious, right? Anyway, the last doctor I saw didn't even tell me this, but he changed my diagnosis to schizophrenia and depression. Exactly what I'd suspected I had for like a lot of the like a couple years. For the last couple years now, I've suspected that they just had the diagnosis wrong. I believe them with the schizophrenia one because of how much worse it's gotten. But when it came to bipolar, I was questioning that. And that's the story of how it took nearly 8 years of being in and out of nut houses, dealing with doctors who don't listen and therapists who don't fucking give a shit, being treated like I'm too crazy to have an opinion that matters before finally getting diagnosed with exactly what I thought I had. And I also have PTSD, but I'm not going to really talk about that in this video. Um, Living with disorder can be pretty debilitating, but the scariest part is that I could break one day and no longer be afraid of breaking. Like, I actually fear that one day I won't care. I'll just be like, fuck it, I'll just go crazy. And then just lose awareness of how broken I am, how broken I've become, right? Um, because of this, I've set up a system to check reality and make sure that things like are what they seem to be, because everything is questioned with my reality. It's like living in 2 or 3 different worlds, and there's different rules in each universe, and each thing has to be compartmentalized and questioned and different and scrutinized in a different way. All right, let me not get ahead of myself here. Let me get back to the subject. All right, so the person who inquired about this asked me specifically about how I keep saying the world is so much quieter now that I have meds. And basically, without meds, every tiny sound assaulted my senses, like the sound of people and the world existing around me, sound of bicycles going by, the sound of cars going by, the sound of people just walking by talking, cats, dogs, wind, bees, anything, bugs flying by. All of that stuff assaulted my senses. Like, I don't know how to put it into words, really, so I'll just use the simplest words, but it was just constantly just like see, I don't even have words. It was just you ever play Silent Hill 3? If you ever played Silent Hill 3, the sounds in Silent Hill 3 when you're in the other world, I felt just assaulted your senses on a level just I don't know, maybe it could be I could be remembering it exaggerated, but I just remember like all the sound effects that you would hear around were just constantly just Look, all right. I can sit here and automatopoeia at you all day, but you get my point. Um, Meds don't permanently fix this issue, by the way, but they quiet the problem a lot for me. And like, yeah, like I can sit here by myself and actually like listen and go, "Oh, the world is quiet." Like the birds outside tweeting at each other. Well, not using Twitter, but tweetering. Didn't the word tweet used to mean just like what birds do? Anyway, look, oh my god. Excuse me. Hearing the birds outside, hearing people walk by, hearing mothers with their kids walk by and stuff like that, those don't sound unnecessarily loud to me anymore. They don't sound insanely obnoxious to me anymore. They just sound like normal sounds of the world living and breathing around me. So basically, it feels like living in a very loud, daunting, and unpredictable world. And sometimes scary as fuck. Um, Constantly checking reality to make sure what I'm thinking isn't banana fucking sandwich on a stick can be exhausting. And it's something I have to keep up on because I deeply fear losing my shit and going down a road one can never return from. You know, the road of talking to fucking trash cans while living outside of a grocery store. You know, something I noticed in my 15 or so fucking years working in customer service, like, I swear to God, dude, most of the homeless people you see also had serious mental health issues, many of them schizophrenic. They'd be talking to walls themselves and inanimate objects, whatever was closest to them they'd be talking to. They would speak nonsense when they asked you for the questions, you know what I mean? Um, and that gave me one of the worst fears I had. Like, when I got that diagnosis, I remember thinking, I'm going to end up talking to trash cans. Like, it's something that you just think that you might lose your shit and end up living in an alley, not knowing how bad your situation is, and never having a grip on reality again. And you'll become a victim of somebody or something, probably, because you don't know what's going on. That is a huge fear of mine. Because of this, because of these fears, I have like obsessive mantras that help keep me on track. Though I sometimes suspect that these mantras are just as fucking crazy as being just regular crazy, you know what I mean? But what can you do? I do what I can to survive from day to day, and that's what my life is all about, keeping things in line from like day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, just making sure that like I'm sane in this moment. And it's really hard to do because I'm constantly thinking about the past and constantly thinking about the future, but one of the things I try very hard to do is focus on the now because reality is now. The only thing that matters is now. The past doesn't exist anymore, and the future hasn't happened yet. It's okay to think about the past and try to learn from your mistakes, and it's okay to envision the future and try to like plan for how you want things to go. But dwelling on either of those things, being anxious about the future, dwelling on the past and mistakes that you cannot fix unless you have a time machine, right? And you don't. So you cannot fix those things, right? That's useless to do. It doesn't really make sense to sit around and worry about things that don't exist anymore. Um, it's no secret that I detest going outside. I don't like the weather, the bugs, people, the unpredictability, the dangerous environment around me. For example, being a passenger in a car gives two levels of factors completely out of my control. I'm not driving. Surprise, surprise. I have a fear of driving. And at 36, I do not know how to drive, and I likely never fucking will. So I'm at the mercy of the driver's abilities here in this situation, is what I'm saying. Number two, the other drivers. And number three, the fact that anything terrible can happen when you're outside. The chances of that happening are higher while you're outside than they are in your house. Just saying, right? Like maybe they're not. Maybe I should actually look up a statistic on that. Are you safer outside, just out in the open, than you are in your house? Everything outside appears really large and imposing to me, by the way, like buildings and everything. They seem like they're leaning at me, looking at me. They seem just so much bigger than they need to be. And I do not like our large objects. I do not like the concept of the ocean, the sky, or space. I hate things that remind me of infinity. The ocean is a truly scary fucking place. So is space. But before I go on a rant about why aliens are probably hiding in the ocean, I am schizo, leave me the fuck alone. I'll say that huge spaces make me uncomfortable, and I'm not certain why. I don't like closed off spaces either, but infinite spaces, like think backroom shit, give me a sense of dread unmatched by even the worst Silent Hill nightmares that, like, you could cook up, right? But here's the thing. I like when you like backroom stuff that's like infinite spaces is really scary to me, right? And liminal spaces are really scary to me. I can explain to you why liminal spaces are scary to me. Liminal spaces are things that are meant to function for humans, right? So like a hallway is a liminal space, right? A pool is a liminal space, right? A hotel is a liminal space. Like these are things that are made for humans, but they're transitional spaces. You just move through them. You don't permanently live there, right? Like you just go to a pool, swim in it for a while, then you go home. You walk down a hallway to go from one room to another. You go to a hotel to stay there for a couple days while you're visiting out of town. These are like transitional spaces. Airport also. And like when these things are empty and devoid of human life, they don't seem right because they were created specifically for the function of human life. So when you remove the humans from them, then it gives you this feeling of like, where are all the humans? Why is this here if there's no humans for them to serve, for it to serve, right? And also, if all the humans are gone, how much longer till I'm gone? That's why liminal spaces make horror games excellent. You know what I mean? I remember playing a video game near Automata, and I remember thinking the buildings in it looked bigger than they should. Then I went outside like a week later and noticed how huge the buildings fucking really were. I remember me and Josh were in the car, and I was like, why does everything look so big? And he was like, that's just how big things are. And I realized, oh, yeah, it's been a long time since I've been outside, you know? I forgot how big everything else in the world is because I'm so used to just being in my house. As previously mentioned, I likely have something like agoraphobia, and I hate leaving the fucking house. It really does feel like a phobia. I have constant fears of people trying to break in, peep in my windows, unlock my door. Think of all the invaders in the Aronofsky flick Mother, nonsensical guests who were never invited but feel entitled to enter and stay and make themselves at home. Well, yeah, I mean that movie bugged me on a particular level due to that because I have this fear of people just breaking into my house, right? And someone broke into the fucking apartment across the way, so now I have a real fear of that. But anyway, it's a tangible fear now. I'm like, whoa, well, it just happened across the way from me. Okay. How do you know you're seeing the world wrong when it's all you know? This is a question I struggle with on a daily basis. Is it me who is seeing the world wrong? Is it me who is actually sick? Or am I seeing more than others can? I think this sometimes. One of the things that there's some I when it comes to voices, they seem to express fears. And I use my knowledge of my own fears to comprehend what the fucking voices are trying to say. I learned this from a lady giving a TED talk, by the way. Like she taught me more about this shit than any doctor ever has, really. Um, but when your voices are like one of the examples she uses, like if somebody knocks on the door and your voices tell you, "Don't answer the door, don't go outside." They're playing on your fear of the outside, which I have a huge fear of the outside, and my voices will tell me, "Don't go outside. There's a bunch of people out there. They're going to take pictures of you. They're going to drag you away." And it's like, wait, why? And then they don't have an explanation for it, and it's just like, okay, I guess I guess that's just what is going to happen if I go outside because I'll believe them, even though I know it's not true. Like I hate going outside, dog. Like I do. Um, anyway, I feel that I don't really know if I've answered any questions here for you, for the person I made this video for, but I am going to leave you with something. So, this is a quote from the book Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism and Schizophrenia, written by Giles Deleuze and Felix Guattari. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing those right. I'll put their names up on the screen so, you know, you can see how they're spelled. I'm sure I butchered them. And anyway, here's the quote. We have seen that the relationship of schizophrenia to capitalism went far beyond problems of modes of living, environment, ideology, etc., and that it should be examined at the deepest level of one and the same economy, one and the same production process. Our society produces schizos the same way it produces Prel shampoo or Ford cars, the only difference being that schizos are not salable. How, then, does one explain the fact that capitalist production is constantly arresting the schizophrenic process and transforming the subject of the process into a confined clinical entity? Why does it make the schizophrenic into a sick person, not only nominally, but in reality? Why does it, capitalism, confine its madmen and madwomen instead of seeing in them its own heroes and heroines, its own fulfillment? And where it can no longer recognize the figure of a simple illness, why does it keep its artists and even its scientists under such close surveillance, as though they risk unleashing flows that would be dangerous for capitalist production and charged with a revolutionary potential, so long as those flows are not co-opted or absorbed by the laws of the market? Why does it form, in turn, a gigantic machine for social repression? Now, I'm not a very smart person. I read this entire book, Anti-Oedipus, Capitalism, and Schizophrenia, by those two men whose names I won't butcher again. And I understood maybe less than half of it. I mean, I got the surface level ideas, I think, but much of it went over my head, and I haven't read it in its entirety since the first playthrough, read through I did of the book. What I will say is this. Think of the term schizophrenia as a reference to anyone who is mentally ill with symptoms that cannot be hidden or that the experiencer of doesn't feel the need to hide. Now think about how many artists and scientists exhibit eccentric behavior, thoughts, and ideas. Think about how thinking outside of the box has been the reason for revolutions, for scientific innovation, for some of the greatest artistic expressions known to man. And capitalism takes our art, our ideas, our thoughts and deepest journeys, repackages them, and then sells them to the population. They are co-opted and absorbed by the laws of the market, just as they said in that quote. They take that which has soul and make it soulless, then sell it to the masses as something to be gawked at, something quirky, different, weird, something worth observing but not understanding. This is something that upsets me a lot, as you can see. What does it feel like? I don't know. It feels like living in two worlds, like having two belief systems, two truths, two realities. I know that no one is trying to break in my house, but I also know that someone is trying to break in. And they're simply waiting for me to let my guard down, so I won't ever let it down. Every sound I hear outside of my house makes me think I'm being stalked, watched, and tampered with, like some superior being is playing with me, like I'm a sim, and doing whatever they can to fuck my life up. I could tell you how my voices aren't always bad, but they're not exactly my friends either. I could tell you about how imaginary friends are very real to me. I could tell you how I thought a voice in my head was an angel until he literally told me that was dumb, and he was nothing more than a voice in my head. I could tell you how I've had weirdly psychic experiences with tarot cards or general anticipation of what is to come. I could tell you a lot of things. But in truth, I think people should experience it to understand it. And I know that sounds impossible. And honestly, I wouldn't wish this shit on anyone. Nobody. But there does exist a game that is so accurate, I had to quit playing it after only a couple hours of gameplay. The game is about a woman suffering from psychosis, and the devs consulted tons and tons of actual schizophrenics and doctors to get this experience down. Now, at first, I was a bit bitter about the fact that the game is about me, and it explicitly warns me that I shouldn't play it. I mean, fuck off. But then I played and was like, oh, I see, this is very triggering. And that's when I realized, oh my god, this is accurate as fuck. Like, this game is so accurate. This is about me, but it's not for me. It is for people who need to have more empathy for people like me. And that I can get behind, right? And the game is called Senua's Sacrifice. And I don't know why I've decided to leave you on this recommendation, but you did ask me to talk about my experience. And I can tell you right now, this game will answer more questions you have about it. Maybe I didn't answer everything that you asked. I'm not the best at staying on track and staying on topic. But thanks for listening. And thanks for caring.
nearly over. Run away. Go. He's down. Quickly get up. They're coming. Get out. Keep them in sight. Take him down.
When you see a fire gate of soot, know that only a sacrifice will stoke the fires of Muspel and let the dead walk through.
Find the fire, Senua, to follow the path to Surt.
It's there. There it is. Focus.
give you the answers you want. But you mustn't look away from the horrors it does offer. Because you cannot overcome suffering if you refuse to look at it.
What's happening? Is the fire gone? Where's it gone? The fire's disappeared. It was everywhere. Maybe it was an illusion. It was a trick. Maybe it was never there in the first place. Maybe the pyre. Cert is through there. For you. He's waiting for her. You can't get through. How will she get through?
She'll need to find another way.
Truth said, find your own path.
There's always another way.
There's always a way.
Find your own way.
You just have to find it. Cert is waiting for you.
It was never going to be that easy.
He's waiting. Cert
Is waiting for you.
through that. Find him.
The pyre.
Another gate. Another gate.
She needs to find it.
Another fire sacrifice.
Another fire sacrifice.
Another sacrifice.
It's too far.
She'll never find it. She'll never make her way back.
She needs to remember the way back.
What happens when she finds it?
Everything will burn.
Concentrate on where you're going. She needs to remember the path.
Everything will burn, then how will she find the way back?
She won't. She won't be able to tell.
The Northmen tell this story. Before the earth was created, there was a world called Muspel. Because it was in the south, it was bright and hot, flaming, burning. Sparks that flew out from Muspel became the stars. Other sparks melted ice in the frozen world of Niflheim, creating the body of the first giant, Ymir. Muspel is one of the 9 worlds, and is now the land of the fire giants. And people from elsewhere cannot endure a journey there.
The Northmen made fire sacrifices, burning slaves like me to reveal the path to Surt. I searched for meaning in their suffering, in their eyes, but they just screamed like helpless pigs.
Flames are everywhere.